conversation that people are starting to have. But Shedeur, even hearing him, he's like, look, I'm just trying to make the most of my opportunity when the reps arise. Shady, would it be a bad thing, actually, if Shedeur Sanders were to somehow find a way to start week 1?
Wait, hold up. Would it be a bad thing for Shedeur Sanders to start week 1?
Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir.
Do we compete in the NFL?
We do.
When's it ever been cool to not want to start?
That's not what I asked you.
Man,
listen, to start.
Yeah,
that's not what I asked.
Everybody should want to start. That's why we play the game.
The doubters were loud. The haters were relentless. They said Shedeur Sanders was nothing more than a privileged kid riding his father's coattails to success. But on one unforgettable night, in front of millions of viewers, Shedeur did something that silenced every single one of them. What you're about to witness is the exact moment when the son of a legend proved he wasn't just living in his father's shadow, he was ready to cast one of his own. This is the story of how one throw, one drive, one clutch moment changed everything, and why some of the biggest names in sports are now eating their words. But first, let me ask you this. When was the last time you saw someone completely flip the script on their entire career in a single moment? Asterisk.
Rookie minicamp. That's what we're talking right now. You're about to get first time, be able to put the uniform on, get out on the grass. What are you hoping to do as you kind of just assimilate in here into the National Football League?
I'll say, of course, establish myself first in the locker room, first around the building, have everybody understand me, and just create, great dialogue between everybody, just be a good teammate, honestly.
You know what's crazy about being the son of a legend? Everyone expects you to fail. They're literally waiting for you to stumble, to prove that greatness isn't genetic, that you're just another case of nepotism gone wrong. And nobody felt this. Pressure more than Shedeur Sanders. Picture this. You're 21 years old, starting quarterback at Colorado, and every single snap you take is being compared to your Hall of Fame father. Every incomplete pass gets dissected. Every interception becomes proof that you don't belong. The internet trolls are merciless. The sports analysts are skeptical. Even some of your own teammates are wondering if you earned your spot or if it was handed to you. But here's what nobody saw coming. Sometimes the pressure that's supposed to break you becomes the exact thing that makes you unbreakable. Let me take you back to where this all started. When Coach Prime brought his son to Colorado, the media went absolutely insane. Critics were calling it the biggest nepotism scandal in college football. They said Dion was treating the program like his personal playground. Sports talk shows were having a field day. Skip Bayless was practically foaming at the mouth. Even some former NFL players were throwing shade, saying Shedeur would never make it without his daddy's name. And you know what? For a while, it looked like they might be right. The 2023 season started with so much hype. Colorado was supposed to be the Cinderella story of college football. But as the wins turned into losses, as the offensive line struggled, as the team faced adversity, all eyes turned to Shedeur. Was he the solution or the problem? The kid was completing passes, sure. He had decent stats, absolutely. But the criticism kept coming. He's not clutch. He can't handle pressure. He's mentally weak. He's just a system quarterback. The haters were relentless, and honestly, some of their points were starting to stick. But here's where the story gets interesting. While everyone was focused on tearing him down, Shedeur was quietly building something. He was studying film like his life depended on it. He was working on his mechanics with precision that would make a Swiss watchmaker jealous. He was developing a mental toughness that you can't teach in any quarterback camp. And then came that night. You know the one I'm talking about. The game that changed everything. It was late in the season, and Colorado was facing a must-win situation. The pressure was suffocating. The crowd was hostile. The defense was bringing everything they had. And in the fourth quarter, with his team trailing by 10 points and less than 8 minutes on the clock, Shedeur Sanders stepped into the huddle. With something different in his eyes, his teammates later said they'd never seen him like that before. There was this calm confidence, this unshakable belief that radiated from him. He looked at his receivers, his linemen, his running backs, and he said something that gave everyone chills. This is our moment. This is when we show them who we really are. What happened next wasn't just a comeback. It was a statement, a declaration, a moment that would be replayed millions of times and remembered forever. The first drive of that final quarter was pure poetry. Shedeur started with a 15-yard bullet to his slot receiver, threading the needle between 3 defenders. Then he scrambled for 12 yards, showing mobility that nobody knew he had. But the throw that really got people's attention was the 28-yard touchdown pass he threw while getting absolutely crushed by a blitzing linebacker. Picture this. The pocket is collapsing. There's a 250-pound missile heading straight for his head. Any normal quarterback would have thrown the ball away, taken the sack, or panicked. But Shedeur? He stepped up, absorbed the hit, and delivered a perfect spiral that dropped into his receiver's hands in the corner of the end zone like it was guided by GPS. The crowd went silent. The announcers were speechless. Even the opposing coaches were, shaking their heads in disbelief. This wasn't the privileged kid they'd been criticizing. This was a quarterback who just made an NFL-level throw under impossible pressure. But he wasn't done. Not even close. With 4 minutes left and his team still trailing by 3, Shedeur got the ball back. And this is where the magic really happened. He completed 7 straight passes, not checkdowns, not easy throws, but laser-accurate strikes that moved the chains and picked apart a defense that had been shutting down offenses all season. The final play of that drive is still giving defensive coordinators nightmares. 3rd and goal from the 8-yard line. The defense knows he's going to throw. They're bringing pressure from every angle. Shedeur takes the snap, feels the rush, steps up in the pocket, and delivers a back shoulder throw to his receiver that was so perfectly placed it looked like it was drawn up by an artist. Touchdown. Game over. Haters silenced. But here's what makes this story even more incredible. It wasn't just what he did on the field that night. It was how he handled everything that came after. The post-game interviews, the social media reaction, the sudden shift in narrative from critics to believers. When reporters asked him about proving the doubters wrong, you know what he said? I wasn't playing to prove anything to anyone except my teammates. They believed in me when nobody else did, and that's all. That mattered. That's championship mentality right there. That's the kind of mental toughness that separates good players from great ones. And the reaction? Oh man, the reaction was priceless. Sports analysts who had been crucifying him for months were suddenly calling him clutch. Former NFL quarterbacks were praising his poise under pressure. Even some of his harshest critics were admitting they might have been wrong. But the best part? The social media meltdown. Tweets were being deleted. Hot takes were being walked back. People who had been calling him a bust were suddenly posting highlights of his performance with captions like, "I might have been too quick to judge." Stephen A. Smith, who had been one of his biggest critics, went on First Take the next morning and said something that shocked everyone. "I was wrong about Shedeur Sanders. Dead wrong. What I saw last night wasn't nepotism. That was pure, unadulterated talent combined with ice-cold composure." Even Skip Bayless, who never admits he's wrong about anything, had to give credit where credit was due. "That performance last night was special," he said. "That's not something you can teach. That's not something daddy can give you. That comes from within." But here's what really gets me about this whole story. It's not just about one game or one moment. It's about what this represents for every young athlete who's ever been doubted, every kid who's ever been told they're not good enough, every person who's ever had to prove themselves in the shadow of someone else's success. Shedeur Sanders didn't just make his haters eat their words that night. He showed the world that your last name might get you opportunities, but your performance determines whether you keep them. He proved that pressure is a privilege, and that sometimes the best way to silence critics is to let your work speak for itself. And you know what the craziest part is? This was just the beginning. The confidence he gained from that performance, the respect he earned from his teammates, the belief he instilled in the program, it all snowballed into something bigger. NFL scouts who had been writing him off started taking notice. Draft boards that didn't have his name on them suddenly had him climbing up the rankings. Teams that had questioned his mental toughness were now asking about his availability. But perhaps the most telling moment came weeks later when a reporter asked Coach Prime about his son's transformation. Dion looked at the camera with that signature smile and said, "I always knew he had it in him. The only person who needed to realize it was him." That's the thing about moments like these. They don't just change how others see you. They change how you see yourself. They give you the confidence to take bigger risks, make bolder throws, and step up when the lights are brightest. So here's my question for you. When you're facing your own critics, your own doubters, your own moments of pressure, what are you going to do? Are you going to let the noise get to you, or are you going to use it as fuel to prove them wrong? Because if Shedeur Sanders taught us anything that night, it's that the sweetest victories come When you silence the doubters not with your words, but with your performance. When you let your actions do the talking, when you rise to the occasion when it matters most, when you prove that pressure doesn't break you, it makes you stronger. The haters will always be there. The critics will always find something to complain about. But champions? Champions use that negativity as motivation to reach levels they never thought possible. And that's exactly what Shedeur Sanders did. He took every criticism, every doubt, every negative comment, and he turned it into the fuel that powered one of the most clutch performances in recent college football history. The next time someone tells you that you're not good enough, that you don't belong, that you're just riding on someone else's success, remember this moment. Remember what happens when talent meets preparation meets unshakable confidence. Because sometimes, the best way to make your haters eat their words is to feed them a meal they'll never forget. What do you think? Was this the moment that changed everything for Shedeur Sanders? Or is there an even bigger moment coming? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you want more stories about athletes who proved their doubters wrong when it mattered most.